back. This is Haunted Basement, the podcast. I'm AJ Serrano, and today's episode is EPCOT, the City of Tomorrow, Part 3. The third act begins in darkness. We hear the droning buzz of cicadas, the gentle lapping of water, a chorus of frogs. In the distance, the sound of a small boat engine grows louder. The stage lights fade in to reveal a John boat gliding on a swampy lake. 4 men sit in the boat and scan the shoreline. One of those men is Walt Disney, now age 62. He is dressed plainly in a short-sleeved shirt and khaki slacks. His appearance is closer to that of an anonymous businessman on vacation than the leader of the most powerful Hollywood studio. The year is 1963, and Walt is on a reconnaissance trip to Bay Lake, about 15 miles southwest of Orlando. At the time, more deer than people live on the 27,000 acres surrounding the lake. It's been 8 years since the opening of Disneyland, and Walt is now ready to build his next project. Not another theme park, no, something far grander, something that requires a lot more land than a mere 160 acres. The idea of building a utopia, like the idea of building Disneyland, was a dream project for Walt, one that he attempted to realize several times throughout his life. The first attempt occurred in 1940, when Walt moved the studio from Hyperion Avenue in Los Feliz to a state-of-the-art, nearly $2 million campus in Burbank. Walt paid for the new campus with the profits from Snow White. Throughout the extensive planning stage, he insisted that the new studio layout not only foster a high level of productivity, but also evoke a comfortable and pleasant atmosphere. Buildings were constructed low and horizontal. Different wings and floors were painted with different bold colors, and the occasional rabbit or deer could be found on the freshly mowed lawn. Walt even considered building apartments on the lot before dropping the idea. The gossip columnist Hedda Hopper wrote, "The whole atmosphere is conducive to the lightheartedness and gaiety that you find in Disney's pictures. After lunch, you'll find executives playing everything from softball to ping pong with employees."
A nice little plant you got here.
Little? There are 51 acres here, Mr. Benchley.
51.
Yes, sir. 51 acres of eroded sandy soil, mildly alkaline in content, but rich in deposits of cobalt and gypsum.
Gypsum, well.
The Burbank honeymoon did not last long. Fear of impending war rattled the economy in the early 40s. And Disney's follow-ups to Snow White, Pinocchio, and Fantasia both underperformed at the box office.
London. Waves of Nazi planes swarm westward to the world's largest city. Some reach London's warehouses, tenements, and great docks.
Roy Disney stepped in to curtail his younger brother's spending. The studio cut salaries and stopped hiring. Walt's utopia started to show its cracks. One animator said, "When Disney began to get the idea for this Burbank studio, he became a different man. From a man who worked closely and collectively with his workers, he got to be boss." Though a Disney production appeared collaborative, the reality was that Walt's ideas were the ones that made it into the picture. Walt developed a paternalistic streak and started referring to the top male animators, writers, and directors at the studio as "my boys."
I got him, Mr. Disney.
Got who, Humphrey?
Mr. Benchley.
Oh, hello, Bob. How are you?
Would you please sign for him?
Sign for him.
Yes, sir. I want proof of delivery.
Boys, this is Bob Benchley.
Hi, Bob.
Access to the steam room, gymnasium, restaurant, and the most spacious offices was given exclusively to Walt's boys. Meanwhile, those animators who were not in the boss's favor were barely making enough to survive. Surprisingly, it was the soft-spoken Roy who was much more accessible to Disney employees after Snow White's success. The animator Frank Thomas said, "You could put your arm around Roy's shoulder," and did. Not with Walt. In February 1941, Walt gathered all of his employees in the studio auditorium to address the growing discontent. "In the 20 years I've spent in this business, I've weathered many storms," Walt said. "It's been far from easy sailing. It required a great deal of work, struggle, determination, competence, faith, and above all, unselfishness. Some people think we have class distinction in the place. They wonder why some people get better seats in the theater than others. They wonder why some men get spaces in the parking lot and others don't. I have always felt and always will feel that the men that contribute most to the organization should, out of respect alone, enjoy some privileges. My first recommendation to a lot of you is this: put your own house in order. You can't accomplish a damn thing by sitting around and waiting to be told everything. If you're not progressing as you should, instead of grumbling and growling, do something about it. This speech did not go over well. A coalition of Disney workers, led by one of the studio's highest paid animators, Art Babbitt, went on strike on May 29, 1941, during the production of Dumbo. Walt was convinced that the strike was led by communists, and he refused to settle. After a bitter 3.5 months, the strike ended. Wage increases and back pay were granted to the striking animators. Walt was incensed. He accepted a 4-month-long cultural ambassador trip to South America that was bankrolled by the US government, leaving Roy alone in Burbank to handle the mess. "I'm not so hot for the trip," Walt said, "but it gives me a chance to get away from this god-awful nightmare and to bring back some extra work into the plant."
All children have their favorite screen star. And here in Chile, it happened to be Pluto the pup.
Walt's second attempt at building a utopia occurred in the 50s, when he planned to build the City of the Arts. The city plans revolved around a private art school that doubled as a feeder program for the Disney studio. Other features included an art-themed shopping and dining area, an avenue of model homes, and an international street. The idea eventually evolved into Cal Arts, a private art school in Valencia that opened its doors in 1971. Walt did not live long enough to visit the campus.
In whatever field of creative activity, standards of the highest excellence and performance of only the most professional sort. This is the high goal of Cal Arts.
His third and final attempt at building a utopia began in the early 1960s, and that's the story you're listening to now, the story of EPCOT. At the time, Walt was considering his legacy and despairing over the company's fate after his death. "They won't be able to handle it," Walt said, "so just let it fritter away." His health was declining. The habitual cigarette smoking and drinking, Scotch Mist was his drink of choice, had aged Walt. His hacking cough resounded through the hallways of the Burbank studio. It was heard as a warning call to employees that the boss is near.
He walked through the door and, pins would drop. You couldn't hear anything. His personal power walked right with him. You knew you were sitting with Walt Disney.
As Walt declined, he also dreamed. He knew that the company wanted him to build another theme park, but what he really wanted to build was his own city, one that would never be complete. Rather, it would always be in a state of becoming. Walt understood that building a city from scratch would be outrageously expensive. He decided he would build both, the theme park and the city, and use the theme park as bait to hook financiers to EPCOT. Walt envisioned the homes in EPCOT as completely self-sufficient, acting as their own source of power and electricity. Trash collection is handled by in-home AVAC systems and transported away in underground expressways. Walt wanted these homes to be a showcase of American technology for visitors from around the world. At the center of Walt's futuristic city plans is a downtown commercial hub. A 30-story hotel towers over a circle of shops, markets, and theaters arranged in international zones. The entire downtown area is enclosed in a climate-controlled bubble. Radiating out from the central hub in concentric circles are high-density apartments, a greenbelt park, and low-density residential areas. Cars and trucks traverse the city by underground expressway. The monorail and people mover provide elevated transportation throughout the city. That leaves the ground level entirely for pedestrians. Robert Moses, the man most responsible for shaping the physical landscape of New York City, saw Walt's plans for EPCOT and praised its potential for being the first accident-free, noise-free, pollution-free city center in America. In private moments, I imagine Walt thought of his mother and her tragic death when he dreamed of the home of the future. The early days of EPCOT were extremely secretive. In early 1963, Walt assembled a small and highly select group of executives and tasked them with finding 5,000 to 10,000 acres in Florida. He used various code names for the enterprise, including Project Future and Project X. No one was to know Walt Disney was trying to buy property, or prices would soar. The secret group scouted all over Florida until Walt spotted Bay Lake from the window of his Grumman Gulfstream. Just like Disneyland, his new city would be situated miles inland and close to multiple interstate highways. Walt directed the group to set up shell corporations to inquire about the land. Under the guise of the Reedy Creek Ranch Company and the Latin America Development and Management Corporation, Walt bought 27,400 acres at just over $5 million. This figure is 1/10 the cost per acre of what he had spent on Disneyland 12 years earlier. The secretive land deal came with the enthusiastic support of Florida Governor Hayden Burns. The state passed legislation which essentially made Disney World its own self-governing county. The Florida press raced to uncover the mysterious buyer, and when Disney's plans were finally revealed in print, Walt and Roy traveled to Orlando in November 1965 for a press conference with Governor Burns. The governor predicted that Disney World would lead to a 50% rise in tourism and tax revenues.
I pledge today on behalf of all of the officials that we would cooperate to the fullest degree to meet the requirements of Disney Production, Inc. in this development.
But money was not the motivating factor for Walt. Making money is the furthest thing from our thoughts in this new enterprise, he said. I mean it. We want it to be a labor of love. We still got a lot of work to do before we can even begin to think about starting construction. Walt now had the land to build on, but EPCOT was still deemed radical and expensive by many powerful voices within the studio, including his own brother. Roy thinks EPCOT is a loser, but don't take any notice of him, Walt said. Disney World will make all the profits we need for this operation. Perhaps the most vocal opponent to EPCOT was Ray Watson, a lead developer of the city of Irvine. Ray was brought in by Walt to advise on EPCOT. When the two men discussed what EPCOT's local government would look like, Walt suggested that residents would be rotated on sabbaticals so that no one would have permanent voting rights. Ray was shocked. You want to create a city of 25,000 people and go into their homes, take out appliances, put new ones in, control everything about the project as a one-man, one-vote democracy? He asked. Ray was also wary of EPCOT's blend of showcase and community. You need to decide whether you are indeed building a community that is a natural community where people will come, raise their families, form their own city government, grow, and so forth. But if you're doing this as a place for an exhibit, then you need to separate that. Now, you're not going to go out and get the milk in your pajamas. You're going to have to dress up and put a tie on because those people that live there are now on exhibit, just like your cast members are. Whenever Walt started to win the argument for his vision of the future, Ray would ask one simple question: where shall we put the cemetery? That always stopped Walt in his tracks. Death was an off-limits topic ever since that horrible accident all those years ago. He wouldn't go to a funeral if he could help it. And now, on the precipice of building his dream project, Walt is also on the precipice of death. His hacking cough has worsened. Even though his doctor proclaimed his health was normal for his age at his last checkup, Walt knows that he is dying. Time is running out for his dream project, so he organizes one last-ditch effort to attract funding.
Yesterday, Disneyland and the New York World's Fair. Tomorrow, a project so vast, it has already been called a whole new Disney World.
Our scene ends on a film set modeled after a large planning room in the Burbank studio. Walt stands before an enormous map of the Disney Florida project and delivers his sales pitch for EPCOT.
We don't presume to know all the answers. In fact, we're counting on the cooperation of American industry to provide their very best thinking during the planning and the creation of our experimental prototype community of tomorrow. And most important of all, when EPCOT has become a reality and we find the need for technologies that don't even exist today, it's our hope that EPCOT will stimulate American industry to develop new solutions that will meet the needs of people expressed right here in this experimental community.
Walt looks old and weary on camera. You could just see him sag, said one member of the crew. Though he managed to deliver a solid performance, once the camera cuts, he is so fatigued that he needs an oxygen mask to breathe. We leave Walt here on the set of the EPCOT film, fighting for his dream project while on the doorstep of death. The lights dim and the seats move through the darkness toward the final scene of this Carousel of Progress. Stay tuned for part 4 of EPCOT, the City of Tomorrow.